go?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for joining us for the Louisville, front meeting of Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control Board. We go, start with our public hearing. The first thing in our agenda is a public hearing this morning. This public hearing held by the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control Board called to order. It's being held pursuant to KRS Chapter 77 of District Regulations. Notice of this hearing law. The public hearing is being held via video telecom. Instructions on making written oral comments via the video telecom have been distributed. All statements must be done today at times. All statements will become part of the hearing record. This most enforceable board order with Louisville Gas and Electric Company today. With staff, we present proposed board order.
Thank you, Chairman Sullivan. And good morning, board members. Today, the district brings an enforceable board agreement for consideration by the board in order to secure the transfer from LG&E to the district of 100 tons of nitrogen oxide or NOx emissions from the shutdown of LG&E's Mill Creek Unit 1. As background, Louisville Gas and Electric currently operates an electric generation power plant, the Mill Creek Generating Station in Jefferson County. In this instance, following action by the Kentucky Public Service Commission, which required the shutdown of Mill Creek Unit 1 and 2, the district issued LG&E issued a permit for the construction by LG&E of a new natural gas combined cycle unit, Mill Creek Unit 5, and the shutdown of 2 coal-fired boilers, Mill Creek Unit 1 and Unit 2, respectively. The new unit, Unit 5, will use dry, low NOx combustors in the gas turbine and low NOx duct burners in the heat recovery steam generator system. And based on the district's review of the construction authorized in the permit, following emission reductions are expected upon completion. NOx emissions will drop by 4,036 tons per year, carbon monoxide by 174 units per year, sulfur dioxide by 1,118 tons per year, by particulate matter by 223 tons per year, and carbon dioxide by more than 836,000 tons per year. Emission reductions were calculated using baseline actual emissions as measured by continuous emissions monitoring systems or SEMS. Mill Creek Unit 1 was retired at the 2024. It accounts for 2,250 tons of NOx, while Unit 2, which is expected to be retired in 2027, accounts for the remainder of that 4,036 ton total. LG&E began construction on the new unit in July of 2024. January 27, 2025, LG&E filed an application requesting the creation of an emission reduction credit for pollutants associated with the retirement of Mill Creek Unit 1. Specifically sought an emission reduction credit of 2,251 tons per year of NOx-related emissions to be banked under CD Regulation 2.12. That is the result of that Mill Creek Unit 1 shutdown. These emission reduction credits are also referred to as offset credits. Offsets are emission reductions. They're generally obtained from existing sources located in the vicinity of a proposed new source in the attainment area, which must offset the emissions increase from the new source of modification and provide a net air quality benefit. We actually have a ratio of emission reductions that are required depending on whether marginal, moderate, serious, severe, or even extreme non-attainment. The obvious purpose for requiring offsetting emissions is to allow a non-attainment area to move towards attainment of the NAAQS while still allowing for growth. LG&E may use these offsets for projects it may undertake itself, or they can transfer those to another entity that needs them. Of the 2,251 tons of NOx emissions from the shutdown of Unit 1, the district has issued an emissions reduction credit to LG&E. This morning, Mr. King gave a great analogy of what that emission reduction credit is. What we've issued to them is essentially a ledger note. Those credits will be held until a project, either by LG&E or by someone who has acquired those credits, is ready to construct. At that time, those credits will be reviewed for the appropriateness of their use in that new project. As part of that emission reduction credit, LG&E is taking out 100 tons, which they are offering today to be transferred to the district. They are also holding back 161 tons to be used as an offset for future emission reductions from Mill Creek Unit 5. As a result, the total emission credit on the ledger is 1,990 tons of NOx from the shutdown of Unit 1. EPA guidance provides that an air pollution control agency may use emissions offsets to replace another emission control as long as the offset is reproducible, enforceable, surplus, quantifiable, and permanent. If approved by the board, the enforceable board agreement securing the transfer of 100 tons of offsets to the district will be included in the pending reformulated gas non-interference demonstration as a permanent and federally enforceable provision within the Jefferson County portion of the Kentucky State Implementation Plan. The same draft before the board this morning is the same draft that is included in the non-interference demonstration, which has been published on our proposed actions page in a public comment period that runs from June 1st until July 2nd. Absent any questions or comments today, I would recommend that the proposed enforceable board of order with LG&E be approved by the board to transfer those credits of 100 tons of NOx to the district for the district's discretionary use as part of its non-interference demonstration for removing and replacing RFG.
Thank you. The province is a representative of LG&E. To make a comment?
No, they have not.
Okay. They may read the public register with them all comments.
Yes, they have. Byron Gary of the Kentucky Resources Council.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robbins. Congratulations on Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you.
What work comes with that? Byron Gary on behalf of Kentucky Resources Council this morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment. I don't offer any position today on the agreed board order or the proposed RFG SIP, which still has a public comment period open and a public hearing scheduled. I only ask that the board consider delaying a vote on this board order, perhaps until the next board meeting or until such time as it sees appropriate. I personally did not become aware of this APO until seeing the notice of agenda delivered via email yesterday. I understand that a public notice is required to be published in the newspaper, and that may have occurred. And that's the only required legal notice, but not having seen a previous notice by email, I haven't had the chance to review yet. So I'd only ask for more time to review compared to the RFG SIP proposal that is still pending. And also I understand that Mill Creek or LG&E has submitted notice we lost video. Do we need
We're
to?
still,
Sort of.
it's blinking.
See. So I don't know if everybody else can.
Okay.
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 I think we're back online in the room. Just to wrap up, I understand LG&E has also submitted an application for an additional natural gas combined cycle at the Mill Creek site that may also relate to this emissions credit offset, which I understand was also already previously issued and it's directly a part of this ABO, but it all sort of ties together, just like more time to review. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Robbins, anybody submit a written comment? Are there any members of the public and that's who wish to make a comment? So please step to the podium and state your name. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a brief comment on this video teleconference? Please raise your hand. Via video teleconference. So you call on. So please combine our participants list by pressing star 3 in the public.
Looks like Madison Johnson would also request that the board delay this decision so the meeting has more time to review. but no one else has raised their hand.
What else? We didn't want to do that on. That's sufficient. for the agreement.
That's what
Okay. Any question by board members? This is a favorable since the district. Right. Very sort of like.
They are being transferred to the district for the district's use.
Any questions? for the board?
Throw one out just for clarity. The 100 tons of credit, whose discretion is that?
So what we're doing, forgive me. Mr. Bertolon has asked with respect to the 100 tons of credit, what will those be used for? So we have here in Jefferson County, we use something called reformulated gas. In 1996, the Commonwealth opted Kentucky into the use of a cleaner burning gasoline at the time. At that time, it had a very large impact in reducing products of combustion, including nitrogen oxides, but also air toxics. And since 1996, cars have gotten cleaner and gas formulation itself has improved substantially. We now use something in other communities called Tier 3 gas. And as a result, the difference between reformulated gas and conventional gas has narrowed. The benefit we get today from the reductions in nitrogen oxides from RFG, it's about 11,000, or I'm sorry, about 11 to 12 tons per year. It's 0.11 tons per summer day. What we're going to do is replace that 12-ish ton benefit with 100 tons of NOx here. It gives us a cushion. We're also a NOx limited area, which means that nitrogen oxides are the primary driver of ozone formation here in Louisville. And so we're actually substituting a higher level of NOx reductions because we are not also substituting any replacement for the volatile organic compound benefit difference between conventional and RFG that still exists today. It too, I think, is around 9 tons per year.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the board members? If not, this concludes the public hearing session of our meeting. We'll now call the regular meeting that will board order. I call your name. Stay here. Jeff Copeland. Here. Candace Show White.
Here.
Marissa Neal.
Here.
Charlie Bell. No. Sajad Jamil. Charlie Barkley. Here. Thank you. Introductions and Sam.
Not this week,
Okay. Good. And public recognition.
not this week, not this month.
The minutes of the public hearing and regular meeting held on May 21st, 2025 were distributed electronically for review. Are there any changes to these minutes by board members? We can see none, those minutes are approved. Moving on to public comments here, Ms. Robinson. Anybody ready to make a comment? No. Any written?
No.
Any members of the public and editor that wish to make a comment? If so, please step to the podium. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a brief statement on this video teleconference? If so, please raise your hand via video teleconference or you can call upon. If you're on, if you can find out participants list or pressing star for you join by phone, you'll be called upon.
See, no raised hands.
Thank you. This completes the public comment portion of the meeting. There is no unfinished business. We'll move to new business. The first is a proposed enforcement board order with LG&E. The JCAS recommend that the board adopt the proposed board order with Louisville Gas and Electric First would ask any comments on the board regarding the request or to delay the vote.
I'll make a comment. It seems reasonable once to me. I didn't really get a chance to review this either. I don't know. I guess they sent me an email, but I couldn't find it yesterday. So we have to do it. Also, I have a couple questions. These emission reduction credits to LG&E, that's a done deal. Is that correct?
These emission reduction credits, yes, they have demonstrated that they have shut down unit 1 and they are subject to APCD regulation 2.12, which is our banking permit. That's that ledger. And they have now gotten to continue Matt's analogy, a bank statement that says, here's the shutdown credit that we're going to give you for unit 1 to be put on the ledger. Again, Mr. King can explain more. When those credits are to be used, the appropriateness of their use will be evaluated against the project at the time it's proposed. This is essentially a ledger entry.
Yeah. Unit 2.
2027 is its current projected shutdown date.
With the low NOx technology on the life cycle units, there are less emissions of NOx. I didn't hear anything about selective catalytic reduction there, so they haven't done that.
The new turbines will have technology. Units 1 and 2 that are one is shut down last year, 2 do not have that CR on. They're unit 3 and 4. They're older folks. Those 2.
Oh, the gas turbine units.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what they're gonna produce a similar amount of electricity with several thousand tons less NOx emissions. So
yeah.
there's a sizable amount of credits. We're only bank, well, first I just say it's the bank. We don't use it much anymore here in the district. It has no money in the bank. These credits may have a value that parties exchange, but it isn't a position bank. I believe in the 80s and the early 90s, it was used extensively. Area had more non-attainment issues and was seeing larger projects. But the retirement of these units produced a lot of emission reductions. Only addressing the unit 1, which has officially shut down. It's anticipated to shut down, but they have expressed some desire to evaluate allowing it to run longer. So we don't think until the actual emission. So just unit 1. Total baseline actual emissions subtracted the amount they need and out. Major source boosters review for unit 5 and 100 tons. They've received that banking permit. This, in my understanding, is for the district to not only set that 100-ton credit, have an enforceable agreement so that as we propose to the EPA a change to formulated gas, that is a enforceable reduction that they could not for no other entities. Since we have a motion by Dr. Copeland to delay, is there a second for that motion?
And a motion to delay the vote.
I will take a roll call now of the board members present. Meeting, please say yes. You agree with the motion to delay the vote on the agreed order. Jeffrey Coburn,
Agreed. Yes.
Candace Show White,
Yes.
Marissa Neal,
Can you not hear me?
no,
You can't hear me?
we can now.
Okay. I don't know what the problem is with my audio with you all. It doesn't like WebEx.
What your response to the motion? Yes.
Yes.
Charlie Brookline.
Yes, on the delay.
I vote no. So we will delay vote on the proposed enforceable board order approval, yes, election for the next meeting.
And Dr. Coburn, Ms. Robbins did confirm that you do have a copy of the proposed enforceable board agreement in your board packet that we sent out last week.
Yeah, I suspect as much. I downloaded like 8 of them.
It was a big one.
Thought I downloaded them all, but they weren't there. And then I couldn't find that email again because the way Outlook organizes the email is a little strange.
Sorry. No, you're good. I just wanted to make sure that it was
Yeah.
there. So,
Yeah. But so I can go website, I guess.
Can you send it again to make sure?
yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
And I do apologize for the confusion. Matt Mudd was at a funeral last week and I was out with my husband's surgery. So if we did not provide you with an adequate copy, I'll carry the burden.
I think it's just that, I blame it on Outlook.
It was a busy week last week.
All right, let's move on to second proposed board. This is the board resolution. Proposed board resolution specifically the board members. I guess I should first ask, did anybody get it? Regarding resolution on.
Just putting it out.
Thank you.
Yes or no?
Board members, did you all see the proposed resolution?
This one?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
You see
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
Okay. The resolution was prepared based on a request to the district last month. That in light of potential future funding concerns, the board requested to evaluate, consider whether to update the current fees to adequate funding for the district operation. Want to give a brief review of this?
Assistant Director O'Neill,
Thank you.
take the honors this morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much. First, I want to thank Quan Nguyen for his assistance in creating this draft resolution that we have here today. It's also, it was in our board packet and presented here on the screen. So there are 3 slides, just tried to make the font large enough to be able to see it. So I'll ask that Andy just rotate through these slides at kind of a slow pace as I walk through some of the highlights of this resolution. And I'm happy to read it aloud if you'd like me to read. Okay. Whereas the presidential administration has proposed a federal budget for fiscal year 2026 that would, among other things, reduce the United States Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, budget from $9.1 billion to $4.2 billion, which reflects a 54.5% reduction in funding for the EPA. And whereas the proposed EPA budget cut includes over $1 billion in reduction in the categorical grants program and the elimination of 16 categorical grants with the aim that states and local governments be empowered to fund their own compliance programs. And whereas the U.S. federal fiscal year runs from October 1st to September 30th of the following year. And whereas the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District receives a portion of its funding and the EPA's categorical grants program, including sections 103 and 105 of the Clean Air Act funds. And next slide, whereas the district administers in partnership with the Metro Emergency Management Agency, EMA, the Risk Management Program, or RMP, requirements for section 112R of the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990. And whereas the district has a memorandum of understanding with EMA for the administration of the RMP program, which among other things includes cost sharing arrangements for the salary of an EMA response person to support the Louisville Metro Hazard Mitigation Plan program initiatives. And whereas due to the retirement of the EMA response personnel, that personnel or that position will need to be replaced, and that the memorandum of understanding would need to be updated to reflect revisions to the cost sharing structure of the EMA response personnel. And whereas the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control Board pursuant to KRS 77.2051 has statutory authority to promulgate regulation to establish a schedule of annual emission fees for the district to cover its development and implementation of the Title V permit program. And whereas the board pursuant to KRS 77.2053 has the statutory authority to promulgate regulation to establish a schedule of permit fees for the district to cover its development and administration of its non-Title V program. Now, therefore, the board requests that the district review, evaluate, and consider its current fee structure to determine whether the current fees need to be revised and updated to assure adequate funding for the district's operations.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adopt the proposed board resolution? So moved. Is there a second? Okay, let's move to discussion. Comments, please. Something.
Resolution just for the district to evaluate this study and to come up with a recommendation.
Which will come back to the board in the form of a recommendation and in all likelihood, a revised regulation.
That seems pretty cool to me. At that time, we'd be given the data, you know.
Right.
No, it wasn't. No. Can I make a second? I'll second the motion. All right, more discussion. If any. Okay, I will now take a roll call vote. Please don't you might say yes, it goes to adopt the board resolution. No, if you're not. Trustee Coburn,
Yes.
manager of White,
Yes.
Marissa Neal,
Yes.
Charlie Bell, here, Jonathan Neal, not here, Charlie Berthelon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So the proposed board resolution is adopted.
What is going to be the timeline in getting this?
So,
Sorry, maybe I should ask that.
no, actually, that's a great question. Sorry. Mr. Bertolin has asked what the timeline will be for pull that information together. The risk management plan program is kind of a discrete portion. We've tried to schedule a meeting with EMA now. I think we're on our 5th attempt to get them to the table. So we are moving forward internally with making our own revisions, and we'll start with a revised version on our end. The remainder of our current funding cycle, the mayor and Metro Council are continuing to negotiate the Metro budget that will finish up on or before June 30th, because that's when we have to have it finished. That will help us understand if there are any changes from the proposed budget that the mayor had, and if so, what those might be. Last year, Metro Council, after the mayor's proposed budget came out, did have some changes that affected our budget. We were able to accommodate those. The federal budget issue is a slightly different schedule. The federal fiscal year, unlike the Metro fiscal year, which runs July 1 to June 30th, the federal fiscal year runs October 1st to September 30th. And as a result, Congress is still considering the federal budget. They have a little bit more time to complete their work. We may see something by July 4th as part of the reconciliation bill. But that is the timeframe that they've currently set. I'm not sure whether they'll meet it or not. There are also some other additional congressional fiscal acts going on, including a potential rescission bill. That is a way for Congress to claw back federal grant funding. One of the ones that we heard may be included in that rescission funding would be part of the $847,000 infrastructure grant that we received to upgrade our air monitoring stations. So we're watching that federal fiscal development closely. I'm hoping that by August 1st, we have more clarity on the federal side. But we may not be able to bring a full package to the board until possibly October.
Director Hamilton? Do you know how much is left to be spent on that one grant that might be clawed back?
Billy's giving me the side eye. He is trying to spend it as quickly as he can.
Okay. That was my question. Okay.
Do you have any other questions? Okay.
Okay. Andy messaged me and they're having a hard time hearing the board members on this side, so I'm trying to move.
The owl. With the owl. Send them to owl. I'm just about to-
It's the owl that's sticking out and sometimes.
That's what he said, but I'll confirm.
All right, there's no other questions on this topic. Correct. So. There are no committee reports. The directors.
Right. I am pleased to let the board know at the July meeting, I will be able to introduce you to two new staff members. One, an environmental coordinator whose work will focus on modeling, and also an executive assistant who will replace Sherry. Sherry did reach out to me recently to check in, and she seems to be enjoying herself greatly. We've talked here about our current metro budget cycle, and we hope to see something finish up in the next week or so. And then we're also still in union negotiations. We do have dates set for July. This will be year 2 of our union negotiations, and we are all looking forward to completing those. Because next month will be July, as required by KRS Chapter 77 of the board's bylaws, it's time for the annual board elections for chair and vice chair. So those will be held at our July meeting. If you could please give some consideration to that upcoming election. You may nominate folks from the floor, including yourself. Take care of that tax. We've talked a little bit already about reformulated gas, but I've got a little bit boring here and I thought perhaps it would be helpful to share. So reformulated gas is a type of fuel that was developed to burn more cleanly. Commonwealth opted in 1996, which means we use reformulated gas year round. Not only does it produce things that make ozone, like volatile organic compounds, and also nitrogen oxides, it also reduced air toxics. Since the time we opted in, US EPA has developed new requirements for gasoline itself. It burns cleaner. It has substantially fewer air toxic emissions as well. Cars have also gotten cleaner. RFG costs a little bit more, and we all share in that cost. Its production cost is estimated by EPA to be about 3 to 6 cents per gallon, and there are transportation costs involved in it. But over time, conventional gasoline's improvement has significantly narrowed benefit that we previously received from using RFG. And today, what we see on an annual basis is about 12 tons of NOx reduction, which is important here because the primary constituent that makes ozone for us is nitrogen oxides. Our air quality overall, not just because of cars getting cleaner and gasoline being cleaner, but because power plants are cleaner and industries are cleaner. And the way we heat our home is cleaner. Our air quality has improved significantly since the RFG requirement was put in place. Once an area opts in, there is a process to opt out. The first step in that is for the governor, who is the body who opts us in, has to send a petition to EPA saying,
we're going to take ourselves out of RFG. And then we're going to provide you with a demonstration that shows that doing so won't have a net impact on air quality. Because our area is in non-attainment, it requires us to replace the benefit we see from RFG with permanent, quantifiable, enforceable surplus emission reductions. And that's where that agreed board order comes in, securing those 100 tons from the LG&E shutdown of Mill Creek Unit 1 to the district to be used as part of that non-interference demonstration. The final non-interference demonstration and the request to replace RFG has been publicly noticed as of June 1st, and it is available for public comment before we would submit it to US EPA. Are there any questions about that?
So the 100 tons that are included in the report, or those are incorporated into the demonstration too?
Yes,
RFG.
yes, that's accurate.
What's the ramifications if that doesn't happen? Report or
Then we won't have replacement credits that can be used for the removal of RFG.
do you think there were some other alternative ways to make that an enforceable agreement? I think EPA, the board is not unique to all of it, but like executive vision report doesn't have to. So I think there's other ways to go to make that credit transfer official, but
Right. For us, the easiest way for us to make that an enforceable credit is to use the board's authority. We'll then incorporate that into the state implementation plan. An alternative to doing so would be to include it in a permit, and then to include the permit in the state implementation plan. That has some, makes more work for everybody when we include permits in state implementation plans, because anytime that permit is open for modification or renewal, we have to update the SIP. I wish that were an easier process, but it's not. No further questions, I'll move on. Assistant Director O'Neill and I attended US EPA spring grants meeting with Metro Force CESARM. That's a group of 10 Southeast states and 14 locals. We met with our counterparts at US EPA Region 4 in Atlanta. So the first opportunity we had to hear from Kevin McCumber. He is our new regional administrator. He did come and read his remarks to us. And the primary topic on everyone's mind at the conference was funding, because all of us are funded through what are known as categorical grants. Those are our section 105 and section 103 grants. They provide support in varying amounts to all of our programs. Mr. McCumber, when asked about the proposed federal skinny budget that would eliminate those categorical grants, indicated that EPA had evaluated its needs versus its luxuries. And apparently that means funding for state and local air pollution control agencies. But he was kind enough to note that despite no further funding, they were also proposing to give us more work with no discussion of what that work might be. But EPA, whose workforce has been steady over the last 20 years, is set to see an 11% reduction in their staffing, as well as a significant reorganization. Gosh, in just a few weeks, we are receiving on a near daily basis goodbye notes from folks we have worked with for many years as they transition out of EPA's offices. With respect to the funding conversations that we held, there was a lot of discussion around what our priorities are if there's no federal funding, and how we will work together, because air pollution does not abide by jurisdictional boundaries. It's a national ambient air quality standard program for a reason, and it will be more difficult if we don't work together. Understanding where the federal budget is, the reconciliation action, what its impact may be, should that pass, a possible rescission bill, should that pass, are key items that we are actively watching. We are able to have some advocacy on the Hill through our National Association of Clean Air Agencies, or NACA organization, as well as the Air Pollution Association of Air Pollution Control Agencies, or APCA. They are actively working to be sure that everyone understands how important the work is that we do. And I'll note, we do the work. This is work we do in almost a contractual partnership with US EPA. We have an air planning agreement. We receive funding. We make commitments to do things in order to support that federal program. It is going to be a while before we have a clear picture of where our federal funding will be, but please rest assured we'll let you know as soon as we hear whatever decision may be made at the federal level, and that we are working actively with our partners at NACA and APCA to advocate for appropriate funding for the work we do. US EPA has begun its deregulatory actions last week. They announced that they would be proposing the repeal of the mercury air toxic rule revisions that were adopted in May of 2024. And also they were proposing to repeal the greenhouse gas regulations for the power sector. Those include regulations that apply to new and existing electric generating units of gas or any sort of fossil fuel, including coal. They are also seeking a alternative to repeal only some provisions related to new plants. They've not yet been published in the Federal Register. Once they're published in the Federal Register, EPA is providing a 45-day public comment period, which means we will provide an update to the board on the specifics of those two deregulatory actions at the July meeting. We had heard EPA would be coming out with a whole lot more deregulatory actions, fast and furious. 31 that they proposed, 27 of those deregulatory actions are related to the air program. In fact, they told a group of air pollution control agencies to just cancel your vacations. So we're waiting, and we'll see when those actually get proposed.
So the 27 you just mentioned, they're not, those have been proposed?
No,
You're just
just
waiting, there's two.
Right. So we're waiting, and we're waiting to see how they're going to do it as a no comment action, which there is an executive order that would allow them to propose and then put in place without public comment some of these deregulatory actions. They've not done that to date. These two were proposed a 45-day public comment period. And as a reg writer myself, that is the way they should be done. That is through a public notice comment with an opportunity for the public to weigh in. Our Rubbertown Air Toxics Health Assessment Grant, or our RAPA, Government to Government Environmental Justice Grant, I'd like to give you a little update. As you know, EPA has moved to terminate our $1 million RAPA grant, move that we are disputing. As part of the dispute process, EPA's grants office had 30 days from the submittal of our dispute to provide their basis for terminating the grant. That goes to the dispute official in this case, that is Mr. McCumber, the new Region 4 administrator. The grants office submitted their response on June the 6th, and they explained in a footnote that there was no fraud, waste, or abuse, which is one of the conditions in which they stated they could terminate a grant. It's just that they, and I am quoting, simply concluded that APCD's grant no longer aligned with or effectuated the program goals or agency priorities of US EPA. We have 30 days in which to provide a reply to that response. We're working with Assistant County Attorney to find when to evaluate what response may be necessary there. And that will be due on or before July 6th. Once it's submitted, Mr. McCumber still has approximately 90 days left to make a final decision. We're also exploring other options and will keep the board informed as we hear from EPA or take other action. Any questions?
How clear are they on their, the goals and positions that they want to follow? How do you make your rebuttal? You know what I mean? It's all guesswork? I'm gonna say that, yes.
There are some legal bases
Okay.
that say, and legal decisions that essentially say, well, the administration, the executive branch, can't simply come in and change its mind about what Congress intended for the money to be spent on. Paperize that, let me know. But that appears to be what they've done here. They've just changed their mind. This is what they want to.
Do they say what they change your mind to?
Apparently to not doing this
Okay.
grant.
So pretty nebulous.
Classic grants, these were environmental justice grants. It's very unprecedented. When we first got wind that they were going to cancel our grant, the first thing Juan did for us was go and see if we could find a precedent. Where has this been done before? And we were not able to identify any other ruling finding decision, a previous termination of a grant on any of these bases. Fraud and abuse, we get that. That ought to be a condition for terminating your grant. Not the issue here. So we're still a little uncertain as to their basis, other than they changed them.
And do you expect them to provide more clarity on that? No?
No, in their response, which I provided to the board, you'll see that there's a 5-page, 6-page summary of the district's arguments in our dispute. You'll find their response essentially in footnote number 1, and then you'll find maybe 150 pages of what they have submitted as evidence of a individualized grant assessment as to the appropriateness of EPA continuing to support this work. I encourage you to take a look at it.
If I could. So the support documents that were provided by the EPA grants officer in response to the district's dispute letter included 2 affidavits that were submitted as part of current litigation against EPA and other federal agencies. And in those 2 affidavits, they, as Director Hamilton indicated, that EPA conducted an individualized review of all of these grants that were either subsequently frozen or terminated. And in one of the cases in the federal district court in Charleston, South Carolina, the court reviewed thousands of pages of documents and could not find any indication of individualized review that had been done by EPA. So the court's finding in the, issuing a preliminary injunctive relief for the plaintiffs in that particular case, did not find any individual review of these grants as was provided by that particular EPA official in support of EPA's defense against, the preliminary injunction in that case. So it is difficult to parse through exactly what the argument that the district would provide to counter against this generalized denial of, inconsistent with the EPA's priorities and actions. So other than, relying on other forms, those type of litigations that have occurred to buttress some of the arguments that the district has raised so far in terms of not only the character of the grant not falling within on certain of the executive orders that have been issued, as well as being, running afoul of constitutional provisions and also the Administrative Procedures Act. So,
And unfortunately, the dispute process is the first step for us. You know, generally speaking, you have to exhaust your administrative remedies. That's the process that we're in when we see litigation. It all could be cured in essence through a rescission bill. Because Congress has the power to rescind. It can change its mind about what it wants to spend money. So we will be watching that rescission bill carefully as we kind of chart our next.
So where is that in the process?
I believe it's being drafted in the House. I don't think it's, we talked last week about where that might be. The first I heard about a potential rescission bill being drafted was at the EPA grants conference. So, last.
Okay.
We'll see where that goes. It's been an unprecedented time. I mean, we've done things in the last year that certainly we never expected to have to do an exceptional event demonstration for Canadian wildfires. 1. 2, we had an ozone exceedance again last week while we had smoke from Canadian wildfires here again. We did submit our exceptional event demonstration for ozone impacts affecting the area due to the 2023 Canadian wildfires that went to EPA for occurrence on June 11th. As you may recall, exceptional events are unusual or naturally occurring events that can affect air quality, but are not reasonably controllable using techniques that air pollution control agencies can implement in order to attain and maintain the national ambient air quality standards. These can include things like those Canadian wildfires, but also high wind dust events. They call those the loops. In Arizona, prescribed fires. In Utah, they have stratospheric ozone intrusions during the winter time. That upper level ozone, the good type of ozone that's way up high and protects you. It actually will dip down into the Utah basin and create high ozone days. Also seismic events. So for us, we received one comment in support of the exceptional event demonstration from the Midwest Ozone Group, or MOG. It's a consortium of industrial and power sector companies and councils, and also some feedback from Region 4. We've included those comments in the final submittal. It's our understanding that this is the first ozone exceptional event demonstration ever submitted in EPA Region 4, and it will be reviewed by EPA headquarters for their concurrence. That's because the regions are reviewing hundreds of particulate matter exceptional event demonstrations from the same Canadian wildfires. So they divvied this work up with some of the more complex particulate matter demonstrations. They call those tier 3, actually going to headquarters along with the ozone demonstrations. If EPA concurs, it will allow us to remove that data from our design value. We will let the board know as soon as we hear something from EPA. Ozone season. As you know, ozone isn't a direct pollutant, it's a combination of volatile organic compounds and nitrogen oxides in the presence of sunlight. Has began here on March 1st, it will end on October 1st. And as I said, we did have our first ozone exceedance last Wednesday. There's math involved in this, so I just want to, I will talk you through it if you want. But I do want to say that an ozone exceedance is not the same as an ozone violation. That's because the way we measure attainment is when you take the 8-hour standard for ozone at an individual monitor, and then look at the 3-year average of the annual fourth highest daily maximum. As long as you're under 71 parts per billion, you're in attainment. So we'll be tracking those exceedances this summer to see if we still maintain the ozone standard for the year. We also had Canadian wildfire smoke that had high particulate
particulate matter. We saw that last week as well, and depending on how the summer goes, we may be looking at another possible exceptional event demonstration of ozone and possibly PM. We would need to be able to show that the concentrations that we monitored during this year have regulatory significance. Absent that, I'd like to retire and not have to do another exceptional event demonstration if I can help. Are there any questions on my report?
Not for me.
No.
All right. Assistant Director O'Neill and Matt Mudd, the district's communications coordinator, had a very timely presentation on the air quality index. So Matt, Leonard.
Give Andy a moment to get our slides running. So Matt and I are going to talk about air quality index and then how we look at air quality forecasts and alerts. Forecast indicates that an alert is needed. So I'm going to talk about the air quality index and then I'll hand it over to Matt and he will talk about our forecasting and alert system. So Director Hamilton already talked about the fact that we're in ozone season. It's these clear, hot, sunny days with the addition sometimes of air quality issues like smoke from wildfires that enter into our area and just make that the mix a little bit more complicated. So that smoke that we were experiencing over the last couple of weeks with the Canadian wildfires has dissipated or left the area, and we are expecting to see sunny and hot weather starting on Friday. So we are always taking a look at this, but you know, especially starting Friday, we'll have a close eye on what the forecasts look like so that we can get alerts out into the community. Next slide, please. So the air quality index is a tool that EPA has created to help communicate about air quality outdoors. The higher the value of the AQI, the greater level of air pollution, the greater concern that there might be for health issues. An AQI value of 50 or below represents good air quality. And when the value gets over 300, that represents hazardous air quality. The AQI is calculated for 5 of the national ambient air quality standards, and that is all set through the Clean Air Act. And then for each pollutant, an AQI value of 100 is generally corresponds to an ambient air concentration that equals the level of the short-term national standard for the protection of public health. Values of 100 or below are thought as satisfactory, and when they get over 100, the air quality can be unhealthy, starting with groups of people that might have particular sensitivities. The highest pollutant that we see at a site sets the AQI for the day, and then the highest site within our whole network sets the level for our AQI for the day. Next slide. So there are 6 categories and are color coordinated to make it easy for the community to understand, kind of, you know, have a quick snapshot of what air quality looks like on a day-to-day or, you know, throughout the day basis. So the categories are good, moderate, unhealthy for sensitive groups, unhealthy, very unhealthy, and hazardous. And then EPA provides guidance of how you might adjust your activities from a health perspective and a perspective of reducing pollution on those days, just depending on where we are on that scale. And we use this color coding. You probably are very familiar with it. You've seen it. It's available on our website and in our communication tools. And we use those activity guides as part of the information that we present to the public when we are working through forecasts and alerts. Now I'll hand it off to Matt and let him talk about the forecasts.
Thank you, Clary, and good morning to the board. So I'm going to go over, this is probably a refresher for some of you and new to others, how we use that air quality index to forecast air quality and keep the public informed. So we work with the Indiana Department of Environmental Management to forecast the daily AQI category for two pollutants. These are our most common pollutants of concern here in Louisville: ozone and fine particle pollution. So what we're doing is we're forecasting the category on the AQI that we expect that any day to be. So from anywhere from good to, in theory, hazardous, but here in Louisville, we really only see good, moderate, or unhealthy for sensitive groups. I think we've seen one unhealthy day since I've been here, and that was during the Canadian wildfire smoke. So we are forecasting for both ozone and fine particle pollution, whether we expect today's air quality to be good, moderate, or unhealthy for sensitive groups. So these forecasts help people plan to reduce their exposure if necessary and their air pollution generating activities. They're produced daily or every few days. So they're produced for each day. During ozone season, they go through it a little bit more fine tooth comb. So like the day before, we're issuing for the next day. But during winter, when conditions are not really expected to change a lot over the course of a couple of days, they might issue a week's air quality forecast just because they're able to forecast further out with a little bit more accuracy. For more complicated forecasts, like on alert days or during the 2023 Canadian wildfires, we usually get a little bit more information from either IDEM or I phone Brian and ask him for a little bit more detail on, stuff we can put on social media so that people can understand why it's a more complicated forecast. Something like, we think the air quality will be good for the first half of the day, but then that smoke plume might come down closer to ground level during the extreme wildfire smoke. So sometimes it can get a little complicated, and explaining to people why we might have a moderate forecast for a couple hours, you might see some conditions that are unhealthy for sensitive groups. It gets tricky. So I'm grateful for the help of our air monitoring team and IDEM when we need to explain a little bit more nuance. Next slide, please. So on that forecast, if the air quality, the AQI for the day, with either of those pollutants, ozone or fine particle pollution, is forecast to be unhealthy for sensitive groups or worse on the AQI, that's when we issue an air quality alert. So in that alert, we include what the pollutant of concern is and the category that's forecast. So usually it would be ozone is forecast to be unhealthy for sensitive groups. Who is most likely to be affected? That's those sensitive groups, generally children, older adults, those with lung issues like asthma, and those who are very active outside, and then actions that the public can take to help reduce exposure and lessen their own impacts on the air, things like driving a little bit less, or we have a team of air quality action partner businesses that take actions on air quality alert days to reduce their own emissions. Something important to note, and this is an easy thing to confuse, alerts are a forecast. They are not issued for live air quality conditions. So we're telling people, this is like when you're thinking of maybe a tornado watch and a tornado warning. This is like the tornado watch. This is us saying the conditions are going to exist that make poor air quality more likely tomorrow. So look out, keep an eye on live air quality information, and be aware that that can happen. This is a forecast. This isn't us telling you it's bad right now. Next slide, please. So this is a little smaller. I'll walk you through it. So this is how we communicate out alerts. So once the forecast is determined and we know that an alert has been issued, we send it to our email list, and CARE, our Kentucky Air Education Program, also sent it to their email list. There's over 8,000 recipients on the list. That includes our own staff, that includes members of the public. Media is signed up, the National Weather Service is on there because they need to know. That's how it shows up on your phone app, is that they are alerted through our alert system. Peer organizations and our air quality action partners are all on that list. Then we contact the Metro Mow team. That's a group of people who mow lawns throughout the Louisville Metro. Of course, one of the actions that we ask the public to take is to not use gas-powered equipment on an air quality alert day. So Metro also wants to be walking the walk in addition to talking the talk on that. So our Mow team does not mow on air quality alert days. We also post on all of our social media channels. On our websites, we put a news item on there and turn on an alert banner that shows up whenever you're on any page on our website, letting you know that there's an air quality alert issued. We also have real-time resources like social media and live monitoring that we use to provide information in real time. Usually I'll check air quality throughout the day, and if it goes up into that unhealthy for sensitive groups range, I'll take a screenshot post it on social media and say, be advised, air quality is currently unhealthy for sensitive groups. It'd be good to not spend a significant amount of time exerting yourself outdoors if you're in a sensitive group. We also respond to media questions, usually when it's a little bit more unique, like those wildfires. That's when we hear from the media. These days, in air quality alert, it's usually a little bit more, meteorologists will cover it and they usually take care of it. So it really takes a more exciting, interesting event like the Canadian wildfires to get a more general and newsworthy story out. You can see Brian Paris from our monitoring team being interviewed during those Canadian wildfire events a couple of years ago. So again, thank you to our monitoring team for always being willing to provide information. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more detail on the guidance that we give the public during an air quality alert. Basically, anyone who's in an impacted group. So if it's an air quality, so if it's or unhealthy for sensitive groups level alert, we want people to avoid, limit or avoid heavy outdoor exertion. That's going on a run, taking a bike ride, etc. And if you are going to be outside, you want to take more breaks, do less intense activities if you can. Some people immediately think of protective gear like an N95 mask. That works for some pollutants, like if it's smoky out, if it's PM 2.5, that'll help filter out some of the air. But ozone is a gas and cannot be filtered by an N95 mask. So we will keep the advice pretty tight when we issue the alert. So make sure to read it carefully so you know exactly what kind of recommendations we're giving. For example, and another thing that we might include, for example, ozone AQI tends to be highest in the late afternoon, early evening. So we'll say in there, avoid heavy outdoor exertion, particularly in the late afternoon, early evening. And we always want people to follow the live AQI. That's how you know what conditions are like right now. It's by following live air quality conditions at resources like louisville.gov/air. Like I mentioned earlier, we also want people to reduce emissions. We have those air quality action partners. And we encourage people to mow less, use their vehicles less, etc. Next slide, please. I like the alarm.
No, it's, no. This is the latest upgrades to the Samsung system. So the settings that used to work, turning everything off, don't anymore.
It was a nice vibe. It was like I was using, I felt like I was using background music for my presentation. So I'll incorporate it. Yeah, keep it. I'll incorporate it next time. I mentioned briefly live air monitoring is the no problem at all. Live air monitoring is a great tool that we like to push people to, especially since our air quality alerts are a forecast. They are not a live alert. So we're telling people, keep an eye on conditions. They do that by accessing live air monitoring through tools like our own Louisville Air Watch, louisville.ky.gov/air, and EPA's air.gov. Both provide live air quality index values, live air quality conditions, and guidance. There's also tools like EPA's EnviroFlash that you can sign up, and it will send you an automatic text when the AQI reaches a certain level. So you can say, when the AQI for any hourly period reaches unhealthy for sensitive groups, send me a text, and I don't do that. So that's a great tool as well to keep people
Do
informed.
the weather forecasters ever do that? Pick up the live AQI?
They'll, especially on social media, I'll see them pick up like, hey, like it's bad right now, or we'll tweet something and they'll quote tweet it or something, or exit, post it. I don't know.
At least one of my apps will alert me too.
Yeah,
Which app it is.
What's the weather app? A weather app.
Yeah.
Okay.
one of the weather apps. A lot of them have incorporated it in it. They'll take stuff directly from our air monitoring network and put it out there. But we're trying to make it more ubiquitous that people, point to the live air monitoring tools because, we want to make sure that people are aware that it could happen on any given day. Like if it's a hot, sunny summer day where everything's stagnant, it's going to sit there and create ozone. We want people to be aware that might happen, but the best tool that they have, hey, is it safe for me to go on a run right now, is that live air monitoring tool. So.
Do you find that your forecasts are pretty accurate?
So I'll get to that in a second, actually. So next slide, please. So it is a little bit of tricky business. This is small. I'll explain it so that you don't need to explain too much. So it's tricky to forecast air quality. most of it's based off of meteorology, weather conditions, whether it's going to be hot, stagnant, still, but there's like little things like humidity or whether the wind is blows 3 miles per hour less than we expected it to. That can make the forecast a little bit incorrect or make us miss an alert or call an alert and it doesn't actually end up being an alert. So on that thing, and I'll explain it because I said it, like I said, it's a little small. The red bar is the amount of exceedances we've issued each of the last 3 years. The green bar is when we've issued an alert and we didn't end up having poor air quality. And then the purple bar is when we did not issue an alert and we ended up having poor air quality anyway. So as you can see, it's tricky. In 2022, we issued 8 alerts, 3 of which ended up being exceedances. 4 alerts, 4 air quality days happened without us issuing an air quality alert. In 2023, we issued 25 air quality alerts. I will say that 2023 was a very tricky year with the smoke. But we issued 25 air quality alerts. 14 of them ended up being poor air quality days. And then we had 11 days that were not issued alerts that ended up being poor air quality days. And then in 2024, we issued a total of 13 alerts, or no, 12 alerts, and 9 of them ended up being poor air quality days. And 4 of them ended up, four days happened that were poor air quality days that we didn't issue alerts for. So ideally, and we've had ongoing conversations with our forecasting partners at IDEM about this, we would like to over forecast air quality alerts. We'd like to end up issuing more alerts just to be on the safe side. If there's a chance that air quality could be bad, we would like to have sent an alert out to make sure that people are prepared and can take action. So I think as the formula moves forward a little bit, we're going to maybe issue a few more air quality alerts just to make sure that we're not missing any days. And if there are days that we issue one and it doesn't end up being an alert, we can say, partially, hopefully we're doing something to prevent it through the actions of our air quality action partners and getting the word out to hopefully help people to, emit a little bit less. But also, you just don't want to miss the days where air quality conditions are bad. But that is also another benefit of us continuing to push people to the live air monitoring resources. There are days where we forecast moderate, where there's an outside chance that if a couple forecast things change, that we might end up having exceedance. So on social media, we'll say the forecast is moderate, but if something changes, you can always keep an eye on google.ky.gov/air to see what live air quality is like. So especially on like hot, sunny summer days, we want people to instinctually go, oh, it's hot, sunny, and stagnant out today. Maybe I should check live conditions before going out. So it's all part of our communications plan around getting the word out about air quality conditions. And hopefully we don't have that many alerts. This year so far, we've issued 1 alert, and that day was a poor air quality day. So 2025, you can say, is off to a perfect start. And we expect that to continue. So
You're batting 1,000.
we're batting 1,000.
That probably won't.
All credit to our air monitoring team and the folks at IDEM that help us out. Like I said, this is a really complicated thing to get right. So I'd be curious to look at how other areas do it, but I'd say that this is probably, I would guess this is close to the same throughout other.
So there's not a few consistent models that apply, regionally.
Models, you think that's.
There's certain models that we use to aid in our forecast, and they're getting better. Always wrong. Okay, but they're getting better and better. Very good.
Yeah, my understanding is they take like a look at all of the models and make a forecast. And to clarify, IDEM really has the team that does the forecasting, and we provide kind of, once they've kind of taken the holistic, well, it's a team effort. We take kind of their forecast, what they've looked at, and we provide some, if we can, some of our local thoughts and maybe my guidance, which is only from a communications perspective, which is like, if we think there might be an alert, let's go ahead and issue it so people are informed. Or we think there is a chance, but we provide our local thoughts and they are really a great help for getting these forecasts out, so. I think that should be it, but if there next slide. Okay, are there any other questions?
Questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. The end, the director's report.
That is the end of the director's.
All right. Speaking about air quality, let's move to the air quality data report. You'll note that in, PM 2.5, it's all good. I got a question about, the ozone, and there was, 4 different stations that had a significantly higher than others in the same day and also in the preceding days. And so Billy, if you could talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
I can speak to the exceedance day. While the wind wasn't blowing much, it was coming mainly from the south and west. And when it does that, it's a pretty typical situation here. When it's that consistent, it pushes the urban plume of ozone that cooks up for the day away from those sites in the south and west and towards those. You'll see the sites that exceeded were the eastern part of the county and in the Oldham County and then northeast in Indiana.
Okay. It's pretty interesting and obvious in this pattern. All right, thank you. Any other questions on air quality data report? The other reports, enforcement status report and excess emissions and complaint investigations that some are also included. Are there any comments on those? Okay. Before we adjourn, Louisville Metro sent out some reminders to board members about completing the required ethic training by July 9th, and also their financial disclosure forms. That is, I know, required every year. Is it ethics training other than when you first get on?
It's every other year, I think, or every.
Is it? Because that was kind of just a blanket request. Or it was specific to people who hadn't done it. Don't know?
Sure, I think it was blanket.
Okay. So please do your financial disclosure forms if you would. I know those are required in what they had for training. It was quite entertaining and informative. We haven't done. All right. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to Lauren Robbins.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If you want to sign into the sheet, please do so outside. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll adjourn the meeting. The next one is scheduled for Wednesday, July 16th, 2025, 10 a.m. Go.